Hello again. A new television series is being made about the legend of King Arthur. It's based upon novelist Bernard Cornwell's trilogy on the subject, the first volume of which is called The Winter King, which is also the title of the television series. I give a link to a bit about this in the description to this video. It is set, of course, during the Anglo-Saxon period, and I doubt that anybody will be the least bit surprised to learn that the part of Merlin is played by a black man, and Queen Guinevere by a black lesbian called Jordan Alexander. She may be seen in the thumbnail to this video. This is part of the latest move to colonise another era of English history and replace the kings and queens of that time with people of African heritage. We have seen this lately, of course, in the Regency period, with Queen Charlotte played by a black woman in the television series Bridgerton. The period of British history when the Roman army occupied this country has already been treated in the same way, and the claim made that there were many black Africans in Britain during that time. Now it's the turn of the Anglo-Saxon era, which lasted for over 500 years and ended with the Norman conquest in 1066. Of course, it might reasonably be objected that both Bridgerton and The Winter King are fantasies. They are fiction. So how can it matter to anybody if these fictional characters are played by black actors or white? This is ingenuous because hand in hand with the television productions of this kind, a campaign is also being waged to persuade people that Queen Charlotte, wife of King George III, really was black. There is, needless to say, not a word of truth in the idea, but many black people in both Britain and the United States are very keen on this idea. In the same vein, thinking now of The Winter King, an Arthurian fantasy set during the Anglo-Saxon period of our history, books are now being published which claim that kings in this country at that time were also black. In the description to this video, I give a link to the Amazon listing for a book called A Black King of Anglo-Saxon England, King Offa. It is written by a mad woman called Shanice Lindsay, and is absolute gibberish from beginning to end. Many black people, though, have praised it and believe that it is the literal truth. All this ties in with the fact that British universities are increasingly avoiding the term Anglo-Saxon and replacing it with the phrase early medieval. This is even so with courses which were previously called Anglo-Saxon history. The reason is that it is claimed that white supremacists in the United States describe themselves as being Anglo-Saxon, and this term is therefore offensive and upsetting to black people. And no, I'm really not making any of this stuff up. Roman Britain has fallen, as has Regency England. It's only a matter of time before Anglo-Saxon England goes the same way, and we will routinely see black people inserted into pictures in history books so as to suggest that a lot of Africans were living here before the Battle of Hastings. It's all right, of course, for older people who went to school before this madness descended upon us, but a lot of young people honestly believe, because they've been taught it at school, that black people have always lived in England, and that even before the arrival of thousands of immigrants from the Caribbean in the late 1940s and throughout the 1950s and 60s, there were already many black people here. That is why any historical drama set in Victorian London these days always features black actors, because the story is now being told that in the 19th century too, England was a multicultural society. I will hazard a guess and say that within a generation, 30 or 40 years, say, the real history of this country would have been entirely obliterated and been replaced by the modern fake history. Few young people these days gain their information about history from actual books, and it is the work of a moment to edit a website and replace images showing a white Anglo-Saxon village with one where there are also black people. This is already being done, of course. I also give a link to a piece on the website of the BBC History Extra magazine, which is entitled The African Who Transformed Anglo-Saxon England. This is about the cleric Hadrian, who was born in North Africa in the 7th century. He wasn't black, though. His family were a mixture of Phoenician and Berber. But using that magic word African in connection with Anglo-Saxon England is enough to create the right impression. I think the focus in the next year or so for these fanatics is going to be the Anglo-Saxon period of English history, and the Winter King is by way of being an opening shot in the campaign to transform the history of that part of our country's cultural background as well.